Hello and welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to cover She-Hulk episode 1. And I'm going to cover everything that's absolutely cringe about this TV show and a few good things. So without further ado, let's get started. So we're going to start off here in the office where Jen is practicing her clothes for a trial. And we can see all the super Femme Power stuff to the right of her in this, to her left. And, you know, it's just a little cringe because it's a little bit stereotypical and it gets even worse. She acts, well, basically like a horrible person and wants to chalk it up to super feminism all the time. Up next, we have the all men are bad cringe, which is, you know, of course, she actually does a pretty good job with her clothes. It sounds like a pretty good clothes. Of course, the man there hates it and it says, oh, you know, you need to let me take this over for you because you obviously can't handle this. Again, why? Well, because all men are bad, so naturally he's going to be acting like a dick. Then we get the fourth wall break. This is not a funny fourth wall break. No fourth wall break is funny in this TV show. Then we get the flashback. Then we get the spaceship, the car crash, right? Because, you know, when you see a spaceship, the first thing you do isn't hit the brakes. It's swerve into a guardrail at full speed. Yeah, that makes sense to me too. And after that, the car crash, then you have the plot device piece of metal that's, you know, jumps out at you from a million miles away, and you know she's going to cut herself on it, which, of course, you know, she does. Then you have her, you know, running around to help Bruce get out because that's the way it goes. When actually in the comic book, of course, the comic books, Bruce just had to give her a blood transfusion to save her life. So this is a little bit different, but of course they got to empower the women here. And then we get the horrible editing, which means, you know, basically we get weirdly edited scenes like this where we get blood dripping on her, although it happens so quickly you can't actually tell where the blood is coming from. It can't be coming from his head, and you're not sure where it's coming from. Then, you know, after seeing this a million times, I think maybe it's coming from his hand, but they never actually show his hand, so you don't actually know where the blood is coming from. It's pretty simple when you're setting up a scene just to set up, you know, a shot of the hand, you see it bloody, and then you see in the next scene, you cut to it and you see the action, you see the blood moving, the drops falling on her arm, and then you cut away from that, and that sort of gives you the beginning, middle, and end to show where the blood is coming from, to show the travel of the blood, and to show where the blood goes to, landing on her arm. But of course, they can't even get that right. Some basic editing stuff in this TV show. Then again, we see her, it cuts to this picture. So again, you can see that Bruce clearly can't be, his head is on her arm and his head can't be the source of blood drops. But again, they cut out the hand, which they just could have placed on his chest and it could have been bloody and you could have seen it and it would have been perfect, right? We'd have seen, oh, his hand was dripping the blood. But no, they just leave you to like get wondering and confused, like, where was that blood even coming from? And these are the kind of scenes that happen, well, all the time with the editing in this show. Then we get actually a decent shot, and that's where you see the transformation, and you see her left arm is actually transforming faster than her right arm, as we would expect. And I actually enjoyed these special effects, so I thought this was pretty good. So, you know, good for them on that one. Then we get these... we get the transformation. So I really like this scene where we get the blood and then we get the transformation started and when they get the transformation ended. This is sort of like a complete scene. This is what I'm talking about. You get the beginning, you get that little beginning cue, then you get the action happening in the middle, and then you get the result. And that's what you get here. Although unfortunately you get that you get the reflection on a terribly painted door. I mean, look at the orange pill texture on that paint job on that door. That's horrible. Someone needed to polish this car. Seriously, what was up with that? Okay, and then of course Bruce Banner's tech gizmo thingy, we could see that was broken, and so we could see that, you know, he's at risk of turning into the Hulk, so he's not going to be much help to Jennifer. She is just turned into a Hulk and she's going to run off into the forest, and then she wakes up in the middle of the forest, and you know, we get this weird fuzzy light that's overhead, and I don't know what this is supposed to be. Is this supposed to be a star? Have you ever seen a star look like this? Like, I don't know. And then is it supposed to be the moon? Because it also doesn't look like the moon. This is just another one of those weird things, because right after this, she wakes up and she's basically in a forest. I mean, this looks like a streetlight, but there's no streetlights overhead. So it's just another one of those weird things that you're going to see in the TV show that doesn't make a lot of sense. Where the hell did this light come from? What is it? Nobody knows. And we see Jen, you know, she wakes up, she sneaks into this bar. I don't know why she can't just go through the front door, but she decides to sneak in through the back door, and she goes to the bathroom to clean herself up. And then, of course, we have the women come in, and they're all concerned about her because, you know, she looks like she's been beaten up or something, although she doesn't actually have any, any damage to her face or anything like that. She's just dirty, right? And her clothes just look terrible, dirty, and disheveled because she looks like she just rolled down a hill or something like that. Now, in the next scene, obviously they're going to help her out and they're going to offer her shoes because women just carry shoes around in their purse. Now, I don't know anything about this. Maybe they do, but this is just weird. The other thing we get in this scene is we get the pronouns, right? And they run over to her and they're like, "Oh, girl, who did this to you? Well, you're too good for him or her or them." Yeah, they gotta fit in the pronouns, of course, but they missed Periwinkle, Buttercup, and Blarfarvenargen, so they didn't really cover all the pronouns. Of course, they could have just used the words, "Well, whoever did this to you, you don't need them." That would have covered it all, and then they wouldn't have to have pandered to, obviously, the woke crowd in this, the pronoun crowd, but they're gonna pander anyways. So the ladies allow her to borrow their phones and call her cousin Bruce, who is going to pick her up. But then, oh, well, she gets to the front of the bar, and what happens? Well, again, all men are bad. So we get 3 guys coming out of the bar, and they're going to get all scary, attempted rapey on her. And of course, this makes sense because they're 20 feet from the front of a bar in a well-lit parking lot, in a bar that they seem to be regulars at. So yeah, that would make sense to, just try to rape a woman in the front parking lot, in a well-lit parking lot, 20 feet from the front door of a bar that you attend regularly. But again, all men are bad, so that's just what men do. She gets all hulky, and then, Bruce intercepts her before she does any damage to these guys. She does scare the hell out of them, and she wakes up in Mexico because that's where everyone goes after celebrating turning into the Hulk, I guess. That's where Bruce's, super secret hideout is anyways. Bruce, not only gives her, puts her in bed so she can sleep, and gives her a nice change of clothes. So she goes downstairs, and what's the first thing she does is act shitty towards Bruce. Now, Bruce, explains to her where they are, and then he explains to her what happened with the accident, that she's a Hulk now, and she gets a little freaked out, she gets a little angry, and then, it's okay. Bruce explains the situation to her, and he's like, "Hey, and I even figured out that your blood has some unique properties to it, and I actually was able to use it to heal my arm." And she's like, "Oh, well, that's interesting. So I'm better than you?" "Well, no, you're just different." And then she's like, "Oh, well, that sounds kind of smug of you." This is a guy who just literally saved her, provided her a bed, and provided her clean clothes, and the first thing she can do is be a dick to him. Yeah, that's super femme power. Great. Yeah, maybe you should just focus on actually being polite, like a polite human being. Of course, her blood is super dangerous, so he's got to destroy it. I actually like this scene. I liked it because I just like the cool special effects that they actually did well in this particular scene. Then we get to the trials, and that's where Bruce is going to test her and make sure that she can understand her powers. So we get the Saw room that we've all seen in the trailer. And of course, this is super cringe because the first thing she does is name drop a Pixar movie in here. And you're really just left wondering, like, why? Why are we doing this? And then she goes through the whole, anger and fear. Well, those are just a baseline existence for all women. Oh my God, really? Again? Like, if you live like that, if that's your existence, then that's because that's how you perceive the world, right? It's not because that's how the world really is. It's a problem with your perception of the world. And I'm going to absolutely stand by that. It's not like I don't get scared or afraid by it from time to time, but I know in most situations, it's probably more of my perception of the situation than the actual reality. And that's simply because we don't know other people. We don't know what their motivations are going to be. We can't read their minds. So sometimes we get scared, and that's normal, but you have to have confidence in yourself and, maybe a little self-defense training. I don't know. So in any case, you know how this scene plays out. She turns into the Hulk and she grabs the door and she tears it off the hinges. But what you didn't see next is that she throws the door into the wall. And then it becomes apparent that she's actually still Jen, which makes this throwing of the door into the wall even all that more because she knew what she was doing and she decided to destroy all of those computers and that door anyways. And then we get all the lame jokes piling in, one after the other. We get a lame yoga joke, which is just not even funny. This moment is just more cringe. And then we get the air horn joke, which in context, people were like, well, you gotta have to see it in the show because that's why it's not funny in the trailer. Well, no, it's just not funny. And then we get the rock throwing, where again, she's the bestest ever. She's naturally better than Bruce. But here's the thing, Hulk, Professor Hulk, Smart Hulk, whatever he is, he's not even trying. He's just demonstrating all of the techniques and things, all the powers that she has. He's just showing her like, hey, you can do this. Hey, you can do this. Hey, you can do this. Why don't you give it a try? He's not trying to beat her, but she's getting all smug. That's the thing. Here she is accusing him of being smug. And then she does something and she's like, look at how great I was. I was better than you. In every scene, she's the one who's being smug. And then he turns around, takes a boulder and says, all right, I'm going to put you in your place. And he picks up another boulder and he hurls it out of the atmosphere where it seems to break the sound barrier and then explode. And then she gets all pissy about it. Like, why are you trying to show me up? Because she's the one who's trying to show him up the entire time. Wow. This person, she's a horrible human being. And she's an even more horrible Hulk because of the way she's acting. Then we get to see the Hulk jump, and you think, finally, a scene where she's not going to act like a total wench. And of course, what does she do immediately after? She starts doing this weird, I don't know, her interpretation of how men act. And she starts doing this, men, and she's doing these stances. Like, oh, look at me, I'm man, her. Is this how she thinks men act? This is her interpretation. Look, this TV show, one of the problems with it is it's nothing but stereotyping, like all the way through. Everything is a caricature or a stereotype because it's so overdone. Of course, then we get the yoga scene where, of course, she's better. Now, like, again, I can understand how this is possible if she actually did yoga and she practiced yoga in her regular life. She could have said something like that, but no, she's just good at it because, of course, again, this stuff, none of it's funny. It's just a bunch of cringe of her being the bestest ever. Then we get the Hulk smash scene and, Hulk kind of finally had it with her and he just pushes her off the cliff.
Little punk!
Dick, move.
Completely.
So I'm clearly nailing it at all of these things.
But naturally, she just jumps back up. He knew she wasn't in danger. But he does explain to her that, yeah, it is important that you learn these things and you need to take this shit seriously. And the reason why is because, it's not about you getting Hulk rage mad out there. It's about you even getting mad at all. If you get any normal amount of rage, then people are going to die around you. There could be death and destruction, and you need to take this seriously. But the whole time, she doesn't take this seriously. She doesn't even think she needs to be there at all. She's too good for this, and it's weird because she's someone who should understand what it's like and the importance of an education. Here she is. She's a lawyer. She had to go and get an undergraduate degree. Then she had to get a law degree. Then she had to practice and did all of this to become a good lawyer. She should understand the benefits of learning from someone who already knows what they're doing. And instead, all she does the whole time is dismiss Bruce and want to get out of there. She doesn't want to do any of this. She's just... I don't understand her motivation here at all. She should want to learn from Bruce, who's already been a Hulk for 15 years. And here he is providing the benefit of all of his knowledge. And all she can do is act smug or act like she doesn't need to be a part of this. She's too good for this. I like to use this scene to kind of highlight the difference that we see in the CGI in here. Now, we can see Bruce's CGI, where we can see his skin, we can see the texture of the skin, we can see blood vessels, we can see the stubble on his face, and that's the sort of typical thing that you get here, and I think it's actually pretty good, right? So we can see the stubble on his face, we can see the lines, we can see the texture of his skin, and we can see all the details on Bruce. So that's one of the interesting things about how he's done. It looks like they spent a lot of time making Hulk look very realistic. Then we get She-Hulk, and she's all smoothed out. And I think that they made a big conscious decision here. I think, you know, even though her hair actually finally looks good in this scene here, and they got the lighting on the hair right, in my opinion, the reason why she has this weird texture to her is it's on purpose. This is intentional. They seem to be doing some kind of smoothing, so they don't show any pores. They don't show any details on her skin, and it gives her skin this weird rubbery looking texture. So I think part of this is actually trying to make her look really young, so they don't want to show any kind of details or any kind of blemishes, and as a result, it just gives her a weird look instead. But I think it's actually a conscious decision. Then Jen, of course, gives us the super lecture about how, you know, women face all these problems like, you know, catcalling, incompetent men, and you know, apparently the constant threat of death because, you know, women. But keep in mind that she's actually an incompetent person right now, and the person who can teach her competence she's being dismissive of the entire time. She's the incompetent person, and she's acting exactly like the people that she's complaining about, telling Bruce that she's got this, she knows how to do this. Oh, you know, it's not too late to let me take over for you here. She's acting like the man from the very beginning scene. She keeps doing it. She keeps acting like it, though. She's basically a horrible person here. Finally, Jen makes up her mind. She decides she's going to leave, and then, of course, Hulk is trying to talk her out of it, but he doesn't manage to. Somehow she manages to run into him, and instead of him just nothing happening, instead of the Jeep just crumpling like it runs into a tree, suddenly we get the Hollywood physics where he gets popped up onto the hood, and she takes him for a little ride, which of course makes no sense because, again, you know, 3 minutes before this, he picked up a rock that was 5 times the size of this Jeep, 5 times the weight of it, and he hurled it out of the atmosphere of the earth. And so what is it? Is he so dense? Is he so much mass and so much strength that he can pick up a giant boulder and hurl it like that? Or is he like just some, you know, normal guy who can be hit with a Jeep and get popped up onto the hood and almost run over it by it? Next, we see him fly off the Jeep, and of course he flies into a pile of rocks, and we get the physics reversed again. Now he's so dense, he's so, you know, he's got so much mass behind him that the force of him hitting these rocks, even at, you know, 10, 20 miles per hour when he gets thrown off the Jeep, is enough to absolutely destroy the rocks. So, you know, again, make up your mind on the physics here. It is a pretty normal, you know, Hollywood deciding they can't figure out the physics of stuff, though. And then finally, we get Jen is not good at something. She can't do the thunderclap the first time, but she's able to do it even better by like the 3rd or the 4th time. She can do it better than Bruce, I guess, because her thunderclap, instead of producing all this wind, it just hurts Bruce's ears. So they fight some more, and then they destroy the bar. And this is actually a nice little moment because it's actually funny. I actually chuckled at this moment where Bruce is like, "Oh man, not the bar," and she's like, "Sorry." So, you know, it was just a funny little scene. Again, see if you can spot the all men are bad. Again, we very clearly get from the scene that all men are bad. Can you spot the evil white men? And of course, the guy who is the attorney that's with her, the man, he's bad again. And he's like, "Don't screw this up because you're going to screw it up." People can't just be human beings. All women are great. All women are super friendly towards each other, and all men are bad. All men are dicks. All men are rapey. That's the problem with this show. It's just super cringe. And then we get through to the court scene, and if you want to see my full breakdown of the court scene, I put together a full breakdown of everything that's wrong with the editing of this particular scene. This scene only takes up the last 60 seconds of the show pretty much, and the fight scene portion of it is even worse. It only takes up 10 seconds, and that's all you get. And we don't get any of Titania's motivations. We don't even get Titania's name. We don't know why she's there. We just see her power. So we're sort of missing out on a lot of the scene, a lot of context of the scene, and then the action only takes 10 seconds, and it's horribly edited. But let me know what you think of She-Hulk Season 1, Episode 1, A Normal Amount of Rage. They really should have called this episode a typical amount of cringe, because that's exactly what this whole show is, and it's what we've come to expect from, you know, these kind of Marvel shows at this point in time. But what about you? Are you going to watch this show? Have you watched the show? What did you think of it? Let me know in the comments below. In the meantime, if you want to continue to Hulk smash the narrative, then smash the like, subscribe, and share buttons, and I will see you in the next video. Have a great day.